And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on NoFilter.net Caffeine TV. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with the great Mike Lubie Lubitz, Mr. Undefeated, Mr. 4-0. And you're going to let that thing play out there for a second because I think people need to get the feeling about what's going on this upcoming weekend. And we have a lot to discuss here on the briefing in a short period of time. But essentially, it's Motown fever. And that's why we have this parody version of the great Bob Seger song, Against the Wind. Bob Seger, of course, on the field before the Detroit Lions' big victory this past week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what was everybody doing? They were betting against the spread. That's what it's all about. We applaud and respect Todd Bowles. Wow, I don't think there's been a better coaching move in the history of the National Football League. Never mind those fakes into the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1 that Vince Lombardi used to orchestrate. And Bart Starr would drop back, and you would hear the great Ray Scott saying, Star, Dollar, touchdown. Imagine the pure, raw simplicity of that, Lubie. Could you imagine how Gus Johnson would have blown that play call?
Oh, my God, I can't believe he's throwing the ball on 4th and 1. It's unbelievable.
And maybe Greg Olson pops in with a 2-hour dissertation about a 1-yard plunge. And you're thinking, life used to be good because we were just sitting there betting against the spread. Against the spread. All right, everybody's got the Motown fever. I was going to start today, and you can kill the music now, Lubie. Good job on that, digging that up, because that was a song that we featured on our radio show years and years ago. Did you have to blow the dust off that thing to get that on the air?
I've kept it around. It's one of our favorites. It's a fan favorite, and for what we're doing here on the morning briefing, it fits perfectly.
It really does, man, because that's all anybody's concerned about. How many points am I getting? I think the line is slowly moving like the tide as people are catching Motown fever. I was going to begin with that Tears of a Clown, right? And then I started thinking about Smokey Robinson. I saw Smokey Robinson in Las Vegas, I want to say circa 35 years ago. I can't believe the guy's still breathing. And what's even more amazing is his facial appearance has not changed a bit. I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking he's got more preservatives injected into his face than you have in a can of Hormel chili, which might be the most horrible substance that was ever devised by anybody that wanted to affect and impact the human condition. Were you a Hormel chili fan by any chance? Hormel chili.
I like it on like a chili dog. I wouldn't eat it as chili, like on a hot dog with cheese on top where you just have a bunch of flavors. It's fine. I wouldn't just go, chili.
Yeah. I think Papillon was being served better meals when he was in 5 years of solitary confinement in the movie by the same name. French prisoner Papillon. Steve McQueen. He was brilliant in that. So was Dustin Hoffman. Remember when he broke his glasses? My God, that was something. All right. So we're hoping to break the bank on this ball game. I don't know. Are you a true believer in the whole Motown movement at this stage? I mean, you can't help but root for them. San Francisco's had more than its share of glory. They originally were laying 7 points. I believe I saw that thing fluctuating in the direction of the Detroit Lions at 6.5. The Lions haven't been overwhelmingly convincing in their 2 playoff victories. And San Francisco certainly looked like they were on the ropes. They looked like the Bayonne bleeder there in the 15th round against Muhammad Ali, where you're thinking, all right, the guy put up a tough battle. Listen, Chuck, nice job there. You went the distance, but not exactly good enough to have the victory go in your direction on the decision, even if they always gave all the calls, much like they do to Patrick Mahomes, to the great, late Muhammad Ali, whom I'm a big fan of course, but nonetheless. I mean, would you say that some of his opponents got clearly jobbed? Ken Norton certainly could make that case. Little Jimmy Young outpointed Ali across 10 rounds in a non-title bout, but overwhelmingly gave the decision to Muhammad Ali. He was getting a lot of gifts, as are the Kansas City Chiefs. Lions, are you a believer, Mike Lubie Lubitz, that the Detroit Lions can get within 6.5 points, or possibly 7, depending on what the game goes off at? Can they possibly be within a touchdown of the San Francisco 49ers? Green Bay was. Can Detroit do it?
Where I was very strong in my opinions last week, and it worked out to go 4-0. This week's a lot tougher. It should be. It's a conference championship. These are the final 4.
You're right there on the fence, my friend. Right there on the fence.
No, I'm going to have an opinion. I'm going to have an opinion. I think the Niners are going to win the game. It's really hard for me. Look, the Lions to me are playing better than the Packers, and they struggle with the Packers, right?
Yes.
So, and again, San Francisco, if you've ever been there, doesn't have weather there was weather. So that's a rare thing to have rain for the entire game in San Francisco. That isn't something that they normally play in. So I would presume that's not going to be the issue this weekend. But again, Deebo Samuel's banged up. He'll play.
He's 50-50 supposedly for this game.
I think the guy's going to play in the conference championship game, but he's not himself. The Lions are healthy, and the Lions are getting more and more confidence. I would take the line with 7, especially if it hangs around 7. Again, if it drops down to like 4 or 5, I'd lean Niners because I think they'll win by like 6. But that point's big, as we saw. Like that point, as Todd Bowles messed around with, that point can be everything. So I would take with 7 right now. I'm seeing 7, 6 and a hook. I would take Lions.
All right, we still have a little time to come to an ultimate decision, a definitive decision on that. But, those spokes of the top of the fence are hitting you right in the ass there, as they are with me, and maybe a lot of people.
The Lions.
Because everybody loves the Lions, right? Against the spread.
Dog, we're going with the dog, baby.
Yeah, and it always, it takes a little bit more, chutzpah, if you will. Allow me a little Jewish terminology there, Jewish slang, a little chutzpah to bet the underdog. But I'm inclined to go ahead and take the points with the Lions because I'm going to be rooting for the Lions. It's blue collar versus the intellectuals. It's the Midwest hardcore ugliness versus San Francisco, right? Where they smoke their granola. They don't even bother using a knife and fork here. These other guys are plunging a knife straight into a steak and picking it up there right off the grill. So a lot of differentials there. We'll have a tail of the tape for you maybe later on in the week. All right, I wanted to talk about stupid rules in sports. And this has been a subject of a lot of conversation since that fumble. Nobody likes to see the Kansas City Chiefs victimized by a rule. And so after years and years of nobody really contesting the idea that if you fumble the ball through the end zone, I guess it's been brought up in the past. But nobody wanted to do anything about it until now, right? When it affected Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Taylor Swift was unhappy with the rules. She started, reading the rule book like she was Gene Steratore up there in the box. She's like, "What are you talking about? This is a stupid rule. I'm going to write a song about this." As if it was one of her ex-boyfriends. Probably make another $1 zillion off that and sell a lot of CDs. Do people buy CDs anymore? No, they just download the thing on Spotify or whatever.
Yep.
All right, so it's going to spark like more downloads than the entire Caffeine TV network does, and no filter. When she starts writing and bitching about this ridiculous rule, which I disagree with it. I think it's overwhelmingly punitive to not only disallow the touchdown, possible touchdown. Now, you got a team that would be usually, a 2-3 yard line. And not only are you going to put them back on the 20, but you're going to take the ball and give it to the other team. What the fuck are we talking about here? If the ball went out of bounds before the pylon, it's Chiefs ball at the 1.
Yes.
It goes out of bounds on a fluke bounce. I mean, this is not a round ball. It doesn't bounce the same way every time. It takes a lot of oddball twists and turns, man. It's a sphere. And so if it happens to, bounce 2 inches the other direction, the other team gets the ball and they have it at the 20. So I would think that at the worst, they should amend this rule and say that the team that fumbled through the end zone, if they had clear possession, which they did, and it goes through the end zone or just out of bounds outside or around the pylon, then push them back to the 20 if you want to have something so that guys don't just stretch the ball carelessly and there's no consequence to going ahead and taking that kind of chance, since all you have to do is break the plane. So I don't know. I mean, do you think that would be fair? It's kind of like the ridiculous overtime rule that they have in a regular season, where supposedly they fixed this thing and they say, oh, okay, well, each team is going to get the ball if the team that gets the ball first and wins the coin flip doesn't score a touchdown. If that's the case, I mean, how ridiculously unfair is that?
I still don't get. What's interesting is the football people, like our buddy John Conjemi, who started at Pitt, played professional football, called college football for ESPN for 20 plus years, still covers it for our local station, the Dolphins.
Yeah.
A football guy, said, and he's an offensive guy, but he said, look, my problem is there's no rules really defending the defense. Every rule nowadays helps the offense. That's the one rule that seemed to help the defense. It's the one last leg where if the offense doesn't do it exactly right, the defense gets help. Our buddy Brett Tessler, an NFL agent for over 30.
Boy, he was old school on that.
Same thing. He's a football guy. He's like, look, the offense gets every help known to man. It's the one thing helping the defense. So I understand where they're coming from in that regard, because it is true. But that they weren't defending the rule, though. They still were pretty much agreeing that's a stupid rule. Like, they're not saying it's a good rule and that the offense should get screwed. They're saying, yeah, the defense gets fucked everywhere. Let's help them here. I mean, that's not a reason to keep a rule to me. Like,
No,
I'm
but to
sorry,
give them
Steve.
possession, I mean, that you are helping them by pushing the ball back to the 20.
Yeah, your thing's not wrong. I actually, you're right. Our buddy Brett Tesler did say, yeah, but then they're just going to go willy nilly and fling it. That's true. I think they should actually have to care about the ball around the goal line.
Yes.
So punish them. There's nothing wrong with punishing them, but now you lose the ball. What? Like, I don't know.
Why don't they give the team that is on defense the ball at the other team's one?
Yeah, like I don't. Like, that's weird.
Just
like,
give them points. I don't know. Give them 2 points or whatever you want to do. But changing possessions there seems to be absurd. I mean, there are a lot of really dumb rules. The overtime rules. We've said this for years, Lubie, and I don't know why nobody is listening. Every analyst that we talk to thinks that we're our usual jerk off selves being facetious about everything. But I believe this, that overtime in football should just be a continuation of where the game ended in regulation, that would be the most fair way to conclude the ball game. So that if you're a team and you're driving and you have the ball at the 30-yard line at the end of regulation, when overtime starts, you start out at the 30-yard line. Why not? That would be equitable to both teams, much more so than having a coin flip decide who's going to ultimately be in control of the overtime period. That's insane. They'd be better off at that point adopting the old XFL rule. McMahon! When Vince McMahon wanted to make sure that somebody got killed in every ball game, I think it was very much like the original reason for putting on the X Games on ESPN. They couldn't wait for somebody to get killed. I mean, they kept adding in more and more things. They're having guys drive snowmobiles off the cliffs of Breckenridge there. And, hey, this ought to be good. You're looking at a 6.7, and he lost his life in the process. Just a ridiculous rule, but I don't know why they don't change it to that. And everybody that we mention it to, Lubie, every expert that we have on, every analyst we have on, every insider that we have on says, real funny, DeForest. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be funny. I think that is the most fair way to end or begin overtime is just begin where the game left off. What is wrong with that? This isn't basketball where you have a jump ball or hockey where you have a face-off. I mean, you're handing the ball to one team or the other, and you're giving the team that gets the ball first under all circumstances a huge advantage. So
what's funny is no one says your idea is stupid. They just said there's no way the NFL will do it. That's what's interesting.
Because I said it, they say it's stupid. Don't you think? They assume it's stupid if it's coming out of my mouth. It's crazy. I mean, there are a lot of really dumb rules in sports. The best, I called boxing for many, many years on TV. And every show began, and a director would say, okay, and they would put up a graphic of the rules. And the rules always started out with, there's no 3 knockdown rule and no standing 8 count. You're like, well, if this is always the case, that they've eliminated these 2 rules from boxing, why are they mentioned at all?
Yes. Why are you mentioning
both rules of which should be involved in the sport for the safety of the fighters if they're concerned at all. I mean, a guy gets knocked down 3 times in the same round. There's a pretty good chance he's losing the fight. And a guy's staggering around on the ropes. Well, why should you allow a guy to just keep pummeling him when you could administer a standing 8 count? And instead of the guy going to the deck after getting hit in the head an excessive amount of times, maybe he gets a chance to recover. And if the fight continues and the ref decides to stop it after that, fine. But he gave the fighter a chance, but without necessarily having him risk his life. Two rules that were actually really good that are eliminated, and yet they're always mentioned. Every boxing match begins with, here are the rules, here are the unified rules of boxing, no standing 8 count, no 3 knockdown rule. It's not in effect. It's never been in effect for the last 50 years. The last guy that had that standing 8 count and 3 knockdown rule in effect, what was Jack Johnson, I think. Exactly. Unbelievable. So, just stupid rules. And, of course, we could talk all day about the unwritten rules of baseball, where you're up 8-1 in the 8th inning and a guy steals a base. So somebody has to go out and get beaned as a reciprocal move to show that, hey, don't show us up. Now baseball has no time clock, no limitation. So being down 8-1 with 2 away in the 9th inning, we've seen it happen where a team comes back. You can't get enough runs. And our position on that, I think you are in full agreement with me. Our position on that is a simple one. And that is that, you know what, if you can't stop the other team from scoring, then, do something about it. Don't cry about it.
Yeah.
Do something about it. If a team is pummeling another team, now we see this a lot, especially in college football and college basketball, where teams buy games and they buy wins, and the score is 49-0, and it's only the second quarter, and Nick Saban has all his starters in the ball game, and you're asking yourself, why? Why me? I mean, it's an embarrassment. I saw a score. I think it was a JUCO game. That and I believe it was a men's game also, 110-0 in basketball. All right, so what are you going to do about that? But if you're the team that's getting slaughtered, annihilated, and victimized by the equivalent of the clubbing of seals, then your choice is simple: walk off the field and forfeit the game, or say to yourself, "Okay, it's 110-0, but we're not going to let him. You're not going to beat Vitas Garelitis 18 times in a row." The old line that he had about Jimmy Connors having beaten him 17 straight. Do something about it, and if you can't, then take on weaker opposition. Make sure you don't schedule that team again. But that's one of those unwritten rules that seems to be absurd. That you're supposed to go ahead and just stop playing altogether, even if you've got your scrubs in the game. You should go ahead and let them play. I mean, that's why people are on teams, especially on the college level. All right, what are you thinking? Any switcheroo? I mean, the other game, the Ravens and. The Ravens and the Chiefs. Ravens laying 3.5 at home. That doesn't seem to be too formidable of a price, and yet is the temptation there to believe that somehow Kansas City will miraculously find a way to win that game? We're going to have to think about that one. Yeah, all right. You're thinking about it?
We'll talk about that tomorrow. And I'm Lions right now, and if it's around 7, I'm going to stay with the Lions, and I think we can talk about the Ravens and the Chiefs tomorrow as we get more into the conference championship games.
People are awaiting your opinion now after going 4-0 last week. That was sensational. Quick note, too, Australian Open, Coco Gauff, big struggle against Kostiak. She looked like she should have lost the first set. Somehow she pulls it out of her rear end there. And we're big Coco Gauff fans, of course, from Delray Beach, Florida, which is tantamount to being our hometown as well, right up the street. And a wonderful young lady. I mean, a delightful personality. She's really maturing. She's maturing both physically, and I don't know that she really had any kind of mental problems in her approach to the game. But wow, she really is turning into just an absolutely perfect example of what you would want to be, what you would want your daughter to be if she was a high-profile professional athlete. Just a great woman. And yet, man, she was on the ropes. First set, she was down 5-1. A couple of breaks and ended up bouncing back and winning that set. Loses the second set in a tiebreaker and just a lengthy tiebreaker. And then comes back and smokes Kostiak in the third set. So she moves on to the semifinals. And and this match was still ongoing when we started doing the show. She is likely to face Aryna Sabalenka, the number 2 player in the world. That's going to be, I think, the match for the championship. And then Taylor Fritz, the last American man standing in the Australian Open, ended up going down to Novak Djokovic. Djokovic has now won 33 consecutive matches at the Australian Open. You do the math on that. That's 4 straight championships and 5 matches towards the 7 he needs to win this year to make it 5 straight and 11 overall. Pretty incredible. The debate about who the greatest of all time is. I see Rod Laver in the crowd. I think Djokovic, would he have wiped the floor with Rod Laver? That's a difficult thing to say. But you would have to say on accomplishment, and especially in an era that also included the other big 3, Federer, Nadal, and at one time Andy Murray before he suffered all of these injuries. Pretty amazing accomplishment by Novak Djokovic to still be around and still be this good in his mid-30s. Just tremendous action taking place at the Australian Open. A lot of 5-setters on the men's side. Still a pretty good field, a competitive field, and it does look like it's going to boil down to Coco Sabalenka in the semifinals to decide the championship. Although Coco nearly became Choco in the early portion of that match yesterday. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. Still sitting on the fence a little bit on that Detroit game, although all of the momentum seems to be, all of the incentive around the country seems to be to root for the Detroit Lions to finally break through. They haven't won anything since 1957, Lubie. 1957, the Russians were launching the Sputnik instead of missiles over the Ukraine. And Dwight Eisenhower was president. Ford was very proud that they unveiled a line of station wagons, which everybody was clamoring for. Station wagons, Lubie. Do you ever see one on the road anymore? Never. I guess it's gone the way of the Edsel. All right, and we have too. So thanks so much for tuning in. All our fans here on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV. For Mr. Perfect, Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Morning Briefing.